Thanks for checking out our election coverage. I'm Reagan Hill with CPHS News. The Wolfcast and Wolfpack online newspaper have partnered together to provide you with an in-depth coverage on this year's district elections. With 5 places on the school board open, our reporters had the chance to interview all but one candidate running to earn a spot in the board. We asked each candidate the same questions with a few follow-ups. The video you're about to watch is their full unedited version. Please keep in mind that we do not fact-check any of their claims. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote.
I'm running for school board because I really think academic excellence, a balanced approach to budgeting, and community engagement is critical for our district. I believe when kids have programs of choice or students have programs of choice and activities that they're involved in, then they engage in deeper learning because they want to be in school and they need to pass in order to participate. So it's a great way for them to engage in their learning and do things that they're really passionate about. So before I ran for election 4 years ago in order to serve my first term, I got involved in different committees that LISD offers. So I did the Leander ISD Financial Leadership Program, and then I also served on the 2017 Bond Steering Committee. I really was concerned about our debt structures as we grow, and we're a fast growth district, and so that bond committee experience really helped me gain a better understanding of the growth and the way we kind of work around how to supply rooms and classrooms for kids that are coming in. So Proposition A is the ACE election, so that's your attendance credit election, and that is the funding mechanism to pay recapture. So the state mandates you have to pick a mechanism to pay recapture. It doesn't mean that you agree with recapture, or Robin Hood as it's also known, but it just is that funding mechanism. I believe that we should not play chicken with the state. We're never going to win. And so in order to just follow state law, we need to pass Prop A in order to do that. So Proposition B is also known as the VADER election, the voter approved tax rate election. And this is helping us move pennies from interest and sinking, that bond debt structure, into maintenance and operation bucket. That bucket allows us to pay for student programs, for teachers, that daily operational thing that's happening on campus every day. That bucket needs some more pennies. And so we just are kind of riding the ship a little bit in order to pay for teacher salaries and things that were approved by the board going into this election.
And what was your stance on that? Do you agree with
So I think we need to pay teachers appropriately. I want to keep programs and choice for kids. I really want to expand for students. I really want to expand on that. So I think I am personally voting yes for Prop B. So I also serve on our long-range facilities planning committee, and we've come up with a plan to kind of maximize facilities across the district. And some of that is through a small rezoning exercise. Some of that is looking at campuses that are not going to see a spike in enrollments. And so you might have school campus closures. You might have teacher cuts, program cuts. If you look at the numbers, 458 teachers equals about 10% of our workforce. And so you look at 1 in 10 programs and go, which one do you lose? And that's terrible for me. I don't want to make that choice. I don't want our kids to lose it, students to lose any program that they love. So I have 2 boys, and their interests are as varied as they are. And so IB, band, FFA, golf, very different interests, right? But to lose any of those programs that keeps them engaged in school would be devastating.
Yeah, and if you had to, absolutely had to, could you give maybe 1 or 2 places that you'd suggest from?
So I talked about, you might look at school closures, you might look at program reductions, and then I think we do an excellent job here in Leander ISD of supporting teachers with aids and different support services. So I think you see some of those really impacted by budget cuts. So I appreciate Dr. Gearing's advocacy for student voice and advocacy about about relationships, and I think we have a great working relationship. He allows me to have really difficult conversations with him. If we don't agree on something, we can talk about it, or he can explain it to me better so I get understanding. But I can also, he gives me the same grace, right? I can have difficult conversations with him and ask him, why are we doing this? And so I think overall, he allows me to go do the work a board member and a board trustee can do and not get hung up in the administration side of things. That's not my line, that's his line. And I appreciate him in going and doing that work. So, like I said, I served on the 2017 bond steering committee. I really got engaged in the debt side of our district, right? We became fast growth, which means you had to build a lot of schools over a short amount of time. We also entered into the habit of using capital appreciation bonds, which are very high interest bonds, and were not a good structure for our debt. And so this board has worked really hard to defease a lot of that type of debt early. We've defeased about $600 million since I've been on the board in debt, and that was always one of my goals, was to really get us out of those CAB bonds. And so that's one piece of the debt side of financial that we're looking at. And then the maintenance and operations side, HB3, House Bill 3, really impacted the funding and compressed that bucket of money. And so then you had less coming in for teacher salaries and programs and student-facing items. And so that really impacted how we do business. And we really, as a board, wanted to support teachers, support programs, not make student-facing cuts. And so that was where we decided to go into Proposition B, to keep those robust programs on campuses. Yes, so my oldest graduated from Leander High School in 2018. I'm very proud of him. He's a senior at Texas Tech. He does ROTC and lacrosse at Tech, and he will graduate in May and go straight into the Air Force. So I'm super proud of my oldest child. And then my youngest child is a freshman at Leander High School this year, involved in FFA and going to try out for the golf team next year. So he's been in the district his whole life. And I think I got engaged in order to make his experience better, where I can impact it. Okay, I'm going to answer this based on a local view, because I'm a local elected official, and I think federal and national things are not my lane. I always advocate that elected officials stay in their lane, and what that means is, the things that I control and oversee are important, and I'm going to stay in that lane. So that's how I'm going to answer your question, if you're okay with it. So I personally know the Williamson County Elections Department. I met him a long time ago, and I believe that we in our county have a really great system of accountability and checks and balance. I also know our county chairman, and that he works really diligently with integrity to appoint the people who are your election judges, your poll workers, and those things. And so I believe locally we don't have that kind of problem, and we have a lot of where we're following the system and we're following the checks and balances in our county and doing the appropriate work to make sure elections have integrity. Of course. So that's a good question. I like that question. Before the pandemic, I was asked to come and tour Acts of Love, and I don't know if you've heard of Acts of Love. It's a nonprofit organization that supports teenage mothers or families that have babies during high school. And so I went and toured the program, and she said, our rent is skyrocketing, and we only service Leander ISD students and young mothers. And they were right across the street from New Hope High School, so that moms could get to campus very easily, engage in their learning. teenage pregnancy and birth, or moms have a high rate of poverty, and I didn't want that to be a barrier to those kids and those students involved in that program. And so I was instrumental in getting them moved out of a building where they were having to pay high rent and onto campus. So now they're in a portable and they have their own space. It's beautiful, and they're on campus and servicing our students in a really impactful way. And I'm just really proud that I was a small piece of getting them there in order to service moms. Because I also was a teenage mom. So I had a baby at 19 and worked really hard to get my education and raise my son and break the cycle of poverty.